Thanks for being here. I'm Jenny Petri-Swanson, and we're going to talk about how we can make Minnesota Pocket Pet Rescue's social media more accessible. Just a little bit about who I am and the context behind this. I am a sign language interpreter. That's what I do for my full-time work. And I also have a lot of friends who are deaf, hard of hearing, blind, low vision, deaf blind, the whole smattering. And I've been really fortunate for that. And I'm friends with these people in real life and on social media. And so I've learned how to make that space more accessible for them. And I care a lot about that. And so I'm going to try and help bring that into the mainstream. I reached out to the social media team with the rescue organization and said, hey, why don't we work together and try and make the content more accessible? So we're partnering in that way. I'm helping right now, working on writing up descriptions for the images that are archived. And then hopefully train and work with some of you folks to keep that up, keep the momentum going. Okay, so the way we'll try and make social media and hopefully our website and other platforms more accessible is by adding image descriptions and captions, subtitles, or transcripts. So that will be done for pictures, videos, GIFs, emojis, and whatnot. And I guess that's for deaf, hard of hearing, deaf, blind, low vision people, but honestly, who doesn't benefit from that stuff? I know I use captions a lot just because I don't want to have the volume on a video on my phone in a public space. People who process information in different ways may benefit from an audio description versus visual and whatnot. So it's really for everybody. And plus, who knows who else we might touch or reach just by doing this and make them think about ways that they can live their own lives or their own organizations in different ways to be more accessible and inclusive, which is always the goal. Okay, so an image description is exactly like it sounds. It's just a written out text to describe the content of an image. This is to make access for people who are blind or low vision. They may or may not be using a screen reader or a magnifying device or different technology. Oftentimes the image description is posted in the comment, like on Facebook, for example, in the caption or caption above the photo or in the comments. For me, I put it in the caption. I usually put it in brackets or parentheses. You don't have to. It's abbreviated often as ID and then a colon to mean image description. And for me, if I'm going to be putting the description in the comments, I'll say in the caption, image description in comments, just so people know to look for it. Here's one sample from my personal page. You can see the picture there, and what I wrote is image of a cute little squirrel standing on its hind legs on the concrete house steps next to a chewed up pumpkin. Green bushes and grass with fallen leaves are in the background, along with pumpkin seeds on the steps next to the pumpkin and the squirrel. So perfect or not? Certainly not, but it's an attempt at something. The other thing that eventually we'll work on is getting transcripts, captions, and video descriptions. So captions and subtitles would be on the video itself, which is great for a lot of people. But again, somebody who's blind or low vision, that may not work. And if they're deaf blind, they would then want a transcript on the side. So that's a written up captions basically on the side in plain text, but then also I'll usually add visual descriptions to that. So I won't take too much time showing you this, but this is another example from my personal page. I had shared this vlog video from a deaf comedian talking about his experience watching the debate and trying to keep up with the interpreters. And so this deaf person captioned the video so that people who don't know sign language know what he's saying, but also so the audio things are captured on there. But then if I wanted to share that on my personal page, I needed to make sure it was also typed out on the side so that blind, low vision friends, and whether they're hearing or not, could access that. So then I, on my own, just copied what he said on his own captions, typed that out along with some descriptions. And then I made a note of that above where I shared it and said, click on the comments to read the transcript. Okay, so if you're going to help do this, it can be, I remember feeling overwhelmed or intimidated, like I'm going to do it wrong, and I'm just here to tell you, there's not a right and wrong, there's not a rule book. I have some training, but mostly just through personal experience and doing this. I have the fortune of doing this for specific people in my life who I can think of. So I can just think of them and what would I want to tell them as I show them this image. It's harder when you have just a blank, like wide open audience. You don't know if there is even anybody who's using the image description and captions and stuff. So you just go with it. You go with your heart and you go your best. One thing I've heard again and again from my deafblind friends are to do meaning-based descriptions, which just means you don't have to write a paragraph. Only capture in the writing what's relevant and what matters. If there's a flyer and you're trying to write the description for it, really the important stuff is like write the time, the place, all of the text that's on there you're going to want to capture. But if there's like 15 people, you don't need to be talking about all their different hair colors and styles and the colors of shirts. It doesn't have any meaning. It's just like, oh, a group of people smiling next to text which says blah, 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 blah. So don't include every detail, keep it focused and relevant. And then the other thing, just from my personal perspective, is to try not to make assumptions about people's identities and identities that are held and displayed in the images. So things like gender and race. I try and be vague about that stuff. Using they for pronouns, maybe saying young person, and that type of thing. Okay, so now we'll just go through some image description samples, just because I feel like seeing and hearing and reading a bunch of them helps form the concept in your mind. So the samples I'll be going through, some are from my own page, some are from friends of mine who do their own, or from public facing pages that I've borrowed from, just so you can see some different examples. So you can see the image on the slide here, and the text that was given for an image description on this post was words, quote, keep telling, keep listening, keep healing, end quote, above orange t-shirt that says, quote, get ready for Orange Shirt Day, Wednesday, September 30th, 2020. Keep remembering, end quote. Logo for the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition with a parent and child with long black hair flowing together with multicolored hummingbirds flying away. So you notice they said what was on the flyer, the text itself, and there's also that logo for the coalition down there, which they described. And this will give you a sense of the level of detail that you might want to include. Here's another example from a personal friend of mine. I blacked out their names and also put that smiley face over their child's face just for privacy. So you can see the picture there. In the description that person typed said name, and they actually used the child's name. Sits on the carpet surrounded by toys while he looks at a book in his lap. He is ever so sweetly signing book. So you notice they do use gender in this because she's writing about her own child and knows or assumes to know the child's gender. I noticed that she didn't get into the details of describing the color of the carpet or the types of toys. It's not relevant. If for that particular reason or that audience it was relevant, like maybe she was posting the same picture on her aunt's wall with the caption that said, hey auntie, he loves playing with his toy guitar, thanks for that. Image description. Child sits on the floor with their toy guitar. Like, right, you'd mention it then, but it's irrelevant at this point, so no need to get into that level of detail. I also noticed that the goal of this post was obviously not to teach anybody the sign for book, because she didn't get into any description about what that sign looks like. She just says signs book. Okay, here's another sample shared by another personal friend. You can see the text there, which is a quote, but it's in the format of an image. And so the person themselves, they shared that image. They had typed the quote themselves at the top as well, along with the signature of who the quote is credited to. They typed that as their caption. So then their image description simply says, image, the above quote in black letters on a white background. So that's it. If you already typed out the quote, you can just say, it's above, it's accessible. Because a screen reader would be reading out loud the text to the person who can hear but is blind or low vision, and they would hear that already. Things like white backgrounds and black text or vice versa, different color combinations actually work well for different people with low vision who may be using a magnifier or zooming in and trying to see that themselves. Okay, this is another example from my own page. I shared a smattering of photos of Little Mr. Midnight, who I'm currently loving on here through the organization. And so what I chose to do for this one was on the main page, the main post with the multitude of pictures, I gave a summary description. So I wrote in brackets, 4 images of Midnight the Rat posed with mini pumpkins and hay bales, detailed descriptions in each photo comment. So then the person could choose, a blind or low vision person could choose, hearing that, okay, do I want to click on each image and go to the comments and check out those descriptions, or do I not care? Just like a sighted person would be able to kind of view that overall and make that decision about whether or not to engage further with the post. So it's kind of leveling the playing field. This is a sample from another friend's page. You can see the picture there. They shared an actual article. Looks like it's from the Huffington Post with that image. And they wrote their own description, which says image, portrait of Rep. Deb Haaland with blurred U.S. Capitol buildings in the background. And things that I noticed for myself is that, and this one they did not place the image description in brackets or parentheses. That's okay. It might even be a subtle connotation of, hey, why do we have to hide this stuff? Doesn't need to be hidden in any way. I'm just speculating. I also find it interesting that they chose to just name the person, Representative Deb Haaland, even though it's not there in the headline. And the headline actually talks about how this person, this Representative Deb, will be talking about cultural genocide of Native Americans. And to me, this person looks to be Native American presenting, and that wasn't in the description. These are all choices that you get to make as the person authoring that. And so you just get to find your own voice and your own comfort level. This one has a lot more going on, and this was taken from a Facebook page of a group called Sins Invalid, SINSINVALID. I really recommend following them on social media or their blogs. It's a really wonderful organization that focuses on disability justice, and it's led by disabled folks of all sorts of different backgrounds. So you can see that this image has a lot going on. It's very beautiful, it's very lively, and it holds a lot of meaning. So you can't skip a lot on that because this is a flyer for a performance, and this artistic rendering that they're using is intended to convey meaning and feeling. So I have up on the slide the picture itself and a screenshot of their comment in the Facebook post that shows their description, and I'll read it out loud to you so you can kind of get a sense. They said, across the top, black text reads, "We love like barnacles. Crop lives in climate chaos." In the center of the image, a fat, dark-skinned brown woman wearing a respirator mask stands next to a brown-skinned woman in a wheelchair with a child on her lap, both holding up a staff with a glowing white orb as storms and fires rage around them. Beneath them, a green octopus curls one of its tentacles around the wheelchair's left wheel, its other tentacles curled gracefully in the water. The orb's light pushes away the storm's floodwater and the fire's flames. In the background, the horizon is red and orange as a city burns. Clusters of barnacles are in all four corners of the image. White and yellow text across the bottom reads, Sins Invalid 2020 Performance, Friday 10/23 and Saturday 10/24. Virtual door 7 p.m. PST, performance 7:30 p.m. PST. Sunday 10/25, performances at 3 and 6 p.m. PST. Visit sinsinvalid.org for more info. That was their description. You actually could probably do that if this video doesn't get out too late. So that's a beautiful, lengthy description. That's good access there. My observations are that just one thing I noticed too is that they use the word fat, and they use that in a really neutral, descriptive, body positive way, and that's something that I noticed that this organization tends to do. Okay, so now I just wanted to say that practice makes permanent, so I invite you to consider practicing this on your own social media pages, or if you manage any outward-facing, websites or anything for your work, personally and professionally. I invite you to consider doing this. You could always, if you have money where you're at, hire and bring in a trained professional, somebody who lives the experience of using these these access points. So anything, I also wanted to say that anything that a deaf, blind, low vision person says that differs from what I've said today, go with what they say, because the user knows best. I am simply relaying what I've learned from the folks that I've been fortunate to get to know. Okay, so I have, I think, a few slides here. I'm not going to go through any of these. I'm just going to share this with you. There's some resources here for you about how to do things like make captions. I want to point out the one called Accessible U. It's made by the University of Minnesota, and there's 7 core skills for digital inclusion that are there's tutorials on there for how you can do things like making your documents more accessible, or how to write image descriptions, what alt text is. So you can explore those if you wish. The next slide is also links to things that are just for fun. These are probably slanted towards deaf, blind, and deaf-related issues, just because that's where my heart is and where the bulk of my experience lies. But those are, again, just things for you to click on. And then a final slide with links to more education for deeper understanding. And this gets into some of the disability justice stuff that I've mentioned. These are starting points. I could go on forever, and there's so many wonderful people to learn from out there. Okay, that's it. Thank you.